Welcome to my YouTube channel, Family Drama Files. Please like, share, subscribe for more emotional videos.
My son emptied our savings and vanished without a word. 3 days later, my husband collapsed from the shock and never came home again. For 25 years, I believed I had lost everything, including my only child. Then one rainy afternoon, a young woman knocked on my door and quietly said, "I am your son's daughter. He died yesterday. Before he passed away, he begged me to give you this storage key." What I found inside changed everything I believed about my son forever. My name's Margaret. I am 74 years old, and for most of my life, I carried a pain that never truly healed. 25 years ago, my husband Richard and I had finally saved enough money to buy a small home near the lake, where we dreamed of spending our retirement. Every dollar came from years of overtime hard work and sacrifice. We trusted only one person with access to our home and bank documents: our only son, Daniel. Daniel had always been charming but restless. He changed jobs, often borrowed money, and promised every new business idea would make him successful. Like many parents, we believed he would eventually find his way. One Friday morning, we discovered our savings account was completely empty. Nearly every dollar we owned was gone. Daniel had forged signatures, transferred the money, and disappeared without leaving a single message. Richard refused to believe his own son could do such a thing. For 3 days, he searched everywhere, called hospitals, police stations, and old friends. On the third night, he suffered a massive heart attack. The doctors said stress had pushed his already weak heart beyond its limit. I buried my husband alone. The police searched for Daniel but found nothing. Eventually, the case went cold. Friends slowly stopped asking questions. Neighbors whispered that perhaps I had failed as a mother. I sold our house, paid the remaining debts, and moved into a tiny apartment. Every birthday, every Christmas, and every Mother's Day, I secretly hoped someone would knock on my door. No one ever did. As the years passed, I learned to survive. I volunteered at the local library, baked bread for neighbors, and tried to build a peaceful life. Still, every night, I looked at the only photograph of Daniel taken when he was 16, smiling beside his father. Then exactly 25 years later, someone knocked. Standing outside was a young woman around 22 years old. She looked nervous, but her eyes immediately reminded me of someone. She introduced herself as Emma. She quietly asked if I was Margaret. When I said yes, she began crying. She told me she was Daniel's daughter. For several seconds, I could not breathe. She explained she had grown up believing her father had no family because he always refused to talk about his past. Only after doctors diagnosed him with terminal cancer did he finally reveal everything. He confessed stealing the money. He admitted running away because he owed dangerous people far more than anyone knew. He believed returning home would only place his parents in danger. Whether that was true or simply guilt speaking, Emma could not say. Before dying, he handed her a small storage key. He told her only one sentence: "Everything your grandmother deserves is inside." Emma placed the key into my shaking hands. The next morning, we drove together to an old storage facility across town. The manager located the unit. When the heavy metal door rolled upward, neither of us spoke. Inside were dozens of carefully labeled boxes. The first box contained family photographs Daniel had secretly collected over 25 years. Pictures of my birthdays, pictures of my volunteer work, pictures of my old apartment he had quietly watched from a distance all those years. The second box held letters, hundreds of handwritten letters, one for every year he stayed away. He admitted every mistake. He described his shame after learning his father had died. He wrote that he wanted to return many times, but convinced himself I would never forgive him. Then we opened the final safe. Inside were bank documents, investment certificates, and cash. Daniel had spent decades rebuilding everything he stole. With interest, the amount was several times larger than the original savings. There was also one final letter. "Mother, money can never repay what I destroyed. I stole your future and my father's life. If forgiveness is impossible, I understand. But if someday you can remember the little boy who once held your hand instead of the man who broke your heart, then perhaps my soul will finally find peace. I cried harder than I had in decades. Not because of the money, because after 25 years, I finally understood the weight my son had carried until his last breath. Emma stayed with me for several weeks. We shared old photographs, family recipes, and memories Daniel had never told her. For the first time in decades, I no longer felt completely alone. I had lost a son, but somehow, life returned a granddaughter. Sometimes healing does not arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it arrives carrying a simple storage key. Forgiveness does not erase the past. It simply refuses to let the past control the future. I still miss my husband every single day, and I still wish my son had chosen a different path. But because one young woman found the courage to knock on my door, our broken family finally found peace. Remember that love can survive even the longest silence.